Welcome back. Thank you very much for staying with us. Now, there's growing support for former ANC KZN Secretary Mdumiseni Ntuli to become the Secretary General of the party. President Cyril Ramaphosa and some branches are backing Ntuli. However, he hasn't been endorsed by his province. So how will he fare? Well, let's speak to political analyst Zamokuhle Mbandlwa on these developments. Zamokuhle, good morning and thank you very much for your time. You know, it's still a long way to go. BGMs are still being held all over the country. But the emergence of Mdumiseni Ntuli's name is an interesting one because his province had not nominated him, but he has come out in President Cyril Ramaphosa's Ward 11 in Shawelo. What would you read into that development?
Good morning, Fundo, and good morning to the viewers at home. Well, this is a very interesting development. However, if the ANC is preparing for the national conference, we've always seen these types of behaviors from different branches. Like, for example, before we talk about this, let's go back to what has happened in 2017, where Mr. Matthew Sposa was also nominated by a few branches, and he even went to church, they prayed for him, and there were people that were believing that he was going to be the president, of which it did not happen. Now, if you look at what the atmosphere of this particular national conference of the ANC, there are so many people who want to contest, and particularly in the case of Mr. Ntuli, it's very difficult for him to even contest or to even meet the threshold in the national conference, because being nominated by a few branches does not necessarily mean as a candidate you will meet the threshold in the national conference. And it's very difficult for a candidate to contest if that particular candidate is not supported by his or her own region and province. Mm-hmm. So it becomes very difficult.
Which is his current reality. Which is his current reality. But then again, many have said the preference of the PEC in a province remains their preference. I mean, branches could still nevertheless support a particular candidate. So given that it's just early days insofar as those BGMs are concerned, you're still of the view that he's somebody that might not enjoy a lot of support come the elective conference?
Well, I don't see him emerging as the SG because, you know, provinces right now, they are engaging each other on the issues of leadership. And I don't see a province of Limpopo having a different candidate as the National Secretary General of the ANC, while few branches have different candidates. I think ANC for a longer time, they've always emphasized what is called a democratic centralism. And those who are elected in different structures of the ANC are given an authority to take decisions on behalf of the branches. And in this case, when they are going to national conferences or provincial conferences, those who are in the leadership positions are the ones who are guiding branches. So in this case, I don't see this particular branch and few other branches that have nominated him having a support from the regional and provincial structure of the ANC in Limpopo in particular.
All right.
So it's very difficult for him to imagine.
Insofar as that concept of guiding the branches, I mean, we've seen, or in many articles, we've read that the strongman politics of old, what we saw in 2017, of leaders that were able to command or wield that amount of power on branches is something of the past. Now you have branches that really do make their own decisions. It's very rare that there will be a PEC that will go as a united bloc. You're saying that even these current PECs can wield or exert that kind of power and influence on branches?
Yes, it's highly possible that PECs and regions will, because, you know, the main problem here is that the PECs and regional structures are the ones who are officiating the processes of nominating or electing candidates, those who will be delegates in conferences. So it's highly difficult for a candidate for a person to become a delegate if that particular person is not supported by the region or by the province to go and be the delegate into the conference. So it's very difficult. But we have seen a different approach recently in the ANC, whereby people are not suffocated in branches. They have their own views. They can be able to raise their concerns about the future of the ANC and the possible candidates for various positions in the ANC at a national level. But it doesn't take away the fact that one branch cannot take a decision on behalf of the ANC if it's not aligned to other branches. Regardless of the view of the branch, but if few branches are having that particular view, it's very difficult for that particular candidate to emerge. You know, it's not possible. Because even branches have to engage each other on issues of leadership. Then by doing so, they can come with one candidate and that particular candidate can be supported.
As we've seen, I suppose, in KZN with their Festival of Ideas. Apologies for interjecting, but as I've said,
yes,
that as we saw in KZN with their Festival of Ideas, which they termed it Festival of Ideas, where the branches or branch leaders met to lobby each other on certain candidates. If we had to move away then from the SG position and go to the TG position, at that particular Ward 11, Pule Mabe was also nominated. He was nominated for the treasurer position. I honestly think, it's by far the most crucial because a treasurer essentially ensures the lights stay on if we're talking about a political party. What do you make of his nomination? Do you see him getting a lot of support from branches?
Well, it depends on his leadership perspective because, you know, these nominations are also aligned to a presidential candidate that is supported by those branches and those provinces. So if an individual is aligned to a particular slate, then it becomes easier for that particular candidate to be nominated. But again, it's very possible for Mr. Mabe to emerge, not only as the TG, but in any position in the NDC, because he's a spokesperson of the ANC. So of course, the branches are familiar with him. He's able to talk on behalf of the ANC, and he was the TG of the ANC youth clique. So it's very possible for him. Again, it all depends on the perspective, because nowadays, even if a candidate is a best candidate for a position in a different slate, it becomes very difficult for the delegates to nominate that particular candidate or to elect that particular candidate. So it's
but are
very
you
difficult.
seeing
So
slates
again
emerge
to say,
here?
what is it that he really wants?
Are you still seeing an emergence of slates here? Because it seems you're having a lot of people being nominated onto one slate, where you'd have somebody that would have ordinarily not been said to be part of the Cyril Ramaphosa camp being nominated alongside him. So are we still seeing that situation of slates, or it's one slate and everybody just lobbies for a particular position?
Yeah, the era of slates in the ANC, I think it's no longer there, because they are able to match slates. But again, it's very difficult to preempt what will happen as far as different slates that they have in the ANC, because they have different leaders, different characters. What becomes more problematic for delegates to do is to combine the slates, because we have seen what has happened in the ANC currently in the National Executive Committee, where the Secretary General did not finish his term of office. So now branches and leaders in various provinces are very cautious about merging the slates, because
but is that not confined to a corruption case? Because some could easily argue and say it's perhaps beneficial to have members from different factions or those that are from different persuasions, insofar as their ideology is concerned. Then they merge, and then you have a situation where everybody feels included, that their position in politics or their ideology is somehow finding expression when you look at the leadership. Is it not purely, in the case of the SG, simply a situation where there were corruption allegations? He is now facing and seeing to that matter in the courts.
Well, it is true, but what becomes more problematic at the moment, the ANC members and leaders in various provinces, they are discussing the issue of the step aside, because that particular point is very crucial for the ANC, because they are not seen to be simple to different members of the ANC. So people will argue that there are other members of the ANC in the National Executive Committee who have not been advised to step aside by the ANC at a national level. But there are few individuals who have been advised to step aside, and some of them have been forced to do so. So that issue is also very difficult, you know, because it depends on the particular political ideology within the ANC itself and the political alignment of members and leaders of the ANC at a national and provincial level. This is why even today they are engaging on the issue of the step aside, and it will be a very critical issue for the national conference to discuss, because some provinces have even pronounced that they want that particular clause to be removed from the ANC resolution.
Which some could say speaks to their broad church, something they pride themselves in, to say they are from different political persuasions and they persuade each other and a certain position emerges and it's fine. That's the nature of democracy, at least according to them. But very interesting developments nevertheless. We'll continue to speak to you, Zamokuhle, as more developments emerge. Thank you very much for your time this morning. That's political analyst Zamokuhle Mbandlwa. More news on the other side. Do stay with us.